har med mig Daniel Feldman som var rådgivare åt Hillary Clinton under flera år. So you were the advisor for Hillary Clinton during her time as Secretary of State, and you traveled with her a lot. Tell me, what you know her more than most people.
Yes.
What is she like?
The real Hillary Clinton is so different from the stereotype that many people have of her. She's so warm. She's very humorous. Has such a keen interest in the families and careers and others of those that work for her. I helped to oversee Afghanistan and Pakistan. I have 2 young daughters, or they were young at the time, and she would bring them a teddy bear that she got in Afghanistan at one time, and they would write her Christmas cards, and she would respond to them. It was really remarkable, and it epitomized what Michelle Obama said last night, the fact that my daughters are growing up thinking that they can do whatever they want in the U.S., including run for president. But she also brought such judgment, such analysis, such rigor to her assessments of these very, very complex and difficult regions. She would read everything that was provided to her. She would study it. She would highlight and ask key questions. She would listen extremely well, and then at the end of it, make a decision. But that's then what she was most focused on. She was focused on how to actually achieve results. How do you actually translate this policy and the decisions into something concrete and that moves forward our national security interests? And so it was very, very pragmatic and real and grounded in realism.
Right. And now tonight she's going to be the nominee.
Yes.
What are your feelings about that? And it must be a big night for you too.
I'm thrilled. No, I'm thrilled because America has such an unbelievably stark choice in front of it. I mean, I'm thrilled because I am so passionate about Hillary Clinton, and I think that she is unquestionably the best prepared candidate that has ever run for president, and I am confident in her skills to be the most effective president from day one. But even absent that, what the alternative is so stark at this point. The picture painted by Donald Trump at the convention last week of such a dark and somber crisis. I think you saw last night at our convention the sense of optimism and vision that we bring to this, and the fact that this is already a very unified party, standing in stark contrast to what Donald Trump represents, that divisiveness, the prejudice, including in how he would treat international partners. And so I'm excited for her, and I feel unbelievably it is all of our duties and responsibilities to ensure that Donald Trump cannot become president.
Right. And you say it's there is a unified party, but we saw last night how many people were screaming Bernie Sanders, and they were booing when people mentioned her name. If you were still her advisor, what would you tell her to do to convince those people?
See, this was a very obviously hard-fought primary, but I think the perception of disunity in the party is really overwrought, and Bernie Sanders did a very good job last night of speaking to that. At its core, our policy differences are very, very minimal, and they're in sharp contrast to the alternative. And so I think that you will ultimately have, and you've already seen, a very unified party. You saw it last night or yesterday over the course of the day, from those early hours to the evening was truly a very unified vision. You didn't hear a single thing when Michelle Obama gave just a electrifyingly breathtaking speech, and the best possible endorsement for her. And you similarly heard from the range of other key speakers last night, Cory Booker and Senator Warren and then obviously Bernie Sanders himself. Right. We must focus on these policy issues and how dangerous and incoherent Donald Trump's policies are, and we will ultimately all rally behind Hillary Clinton.
I know you've done a lot of work with crisis communication also, and there has been some crisis around her. It's a double email scandal. First the private server, and now the leaked ones about how the DNC was favorite Hillary Clinton. What would you say? How have you been dealing with this, and what could they have done better?
Well, obviously, the DNC emails, first of all, had nothing to do with Secretary Clinton's campaign. I mean, it was separate. And I think most importantly, it's a criminal matter of the DNC actually being hacked, and I think very legitimate, incredible concerns that it was hacked by the Russians. I think that is what's truly, truly troubling, and I know that many people in Sweden also are concerned about Russia's rise and how to deal with it, and I think that seeing Russia's role and desire to impact domestic politics in America is truly frightening. And the only thing more frightening is the fact that Donald Trump seems to look up to Putin and support him as a strongman. And his recent statements about NATO and Baltic countries there and others that would all empower Russia. And I truly believe that if Donald Trump were to win, there would be cheering in the streets of Moscow. So this was a criminal issue which we have to address. We have to be concerned about the ramifications, including with Russia. But as a crisis communications person, I would also say that the DNC handled this very well in terms of once the news came out, to try to deal with it immediately, transparently, show that there are changes, to apologize for it as DNC leadership did, and including Donna Brazil, who will be taking over, that the head of DNC has stepped down, and that this can't be a sideshow, that we are moving forward and really focused on the broad importance of this election and how we can achieve our objectives.
Right. And last question I have to ask you, what's your relationship now? Have you talked to her since all this
So
happened?
I first worked in the Clinton White House over 20 years ago. I worked at the National Security Council and for the Legal Counsel's office. I knew Secretary Clinton when she was in the Senate, and I was also working in the Senate, and then obviously came in at the outset of her tenure as secretary. Now I help to organize other foreign policy experts. I left the State Department last year, and so I'm doing this solely in my personal capacity. But she's obviously on the road trying to convince other people, not me, which is far more important. So I only see her on occasion. But I work very closely still with her team, and it's a very, very broad array of foreign policy experts that are committed to her winning this election, and I might add a very bipartisan set of foreign policy experts. That there's a really unprecedented number of mainstream Republicans who are now committing to support Hillary, both publicly and privately, who are working with us on assessing our foreign policy because they are frightened by what Donald Trump holds out. Because if what he has said so flies in the face of decades of a bipartisan approach to foreign policy issues. And so I think you will see a real kind of coming together of the foreign policy community in support of Hillary Clinton, which has already happened. And I might add, just for your viewers in Sweden,
yes.
I'm an alum of many presidential campaigns as well. You asked me what I'm currently doing. I'm in the private sector, but I worked at the department, including Under Secretary Kerry, for 7 years. I've been back and forth, but I worked on the Gore campaign, including for 35 days in Tallahassee, Florida, or on the recount. This will continue to be a very close-fought election, and every single vote will matter. And I strongly urge anyone who's living in Sweden or elsewhere who's an American citizen to register if you haven't already. There's still time, and get out and make sure that your vote is counted.
Right, and so if you meet her here in the next couple of days, what are you going to tell her?
I'm going to tell her to continue to do exactly what she's been doing, to keep this focus on the policy issues, the differences, what she can bring. I thought Michelle Obama's advice last night was beautiful. When they go low, we stay high. That's the approach that she has taken. It's what she'll continue to do. And I think that what you'll also hear over the next few days is not only a continued focus on domestic issues, but on national security and foreign policy issues, and then really trying to give a more nuanced sense of who Hillary Clinton really is, what she has been passionate about on the fight for women and girls that I saw every single day in my work in Afghanistan as she promoted the role of Afghan women, her core convictions and principles that will guide her from the very outset. And I think when more and more people see and understand that, as opposed to seeing a caricature of her that has been in the public domain for many years, that they too will support her.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ja, det var alltså Daniel Feldman som jobbade som rådgivare åt Hillary Clinton under tiden som hon var utrikesminister och reste mycket tillsammans med henne, bland annat till Afghanistan, som ni har